Harbor Committee meeting for the town of Chincoteague for April 6th. Public comment? No public comment. Move to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Talbert.
Last year, actually, before I even came on board, the town applied for a boating infrastructure grant, which is awarded by the Virginia Health Department. Just to say, this is nowhere near what the VPA's system is. We finally got word last fall, and it was literally a 30-second phone call from the administrator telling me that we got the grant. The paperwork followed in December, and now we've actually got a contract for the grant. The grant's worth some $90,000, but depending on how you use it, you may or may not get all of that. It's only good for transient. Well, let me put it this way. It's a 75-25 grant. You can get all 75% if you use the money for a facility that has 100% of the transient slips, which the harbor, of course, is not. They're less than 10% now. So since Robert Reed Park is 100% transient slips, we can get 75% of that grant. Robert Reed Park, we'd like to use all the money at Robert Reed Park. The things we identified, the things that were originally identified was redoing the bathrooms down there, which has already been done. What was the other thing that we did down there?
Electric.
Yeah, and fuel pumps at the harbor, which we've already done. So those two projects came completely out of the scope, but they've been so long with the administration of this and getting it awarded that we've already done some of the things.
Right. So
right now, what we want to do is put some electric/water pedestals down there, and I'm sure we can find other things. We've got other plans for that facility as far as boating infrastructure, and we'd like to spend the rest of it right there. But just wanted to bring that to your attention that we did get that grant, and the grant's there if you want to read all about it. And this is the most descriptive part of it. I put in your packet here. It's a couple of tables that shows you actually what you can get and what was originally planned. But we'll be working on that as we go. There's a project later in the meeting here that will show you that we've got planned for Robert Reed. And that's the boating infrastructure grant.
So that's different than the
VPA.
So you haven't been getting the boating infrastructure every year, right?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
They're two completely separate things.
Yeah, this is awarded by the Virginia Health Department. As I said, the way it's administered, you would think they don't do this normally because it doesn't seem to be. VPA is very organized, very down to the minute. They've got everything set, and that girl runs that with she runs a tight ship. This is kind of loosey-goosey.
And the big money comes from like fishing licenses and that kind of stuff.
And the Port Authority, we're only competing against Virginia.
Right.
Big is all over the country. And it's I've been here 6 years, and we've been fooling with him, and this is the first
time we got. Well, we did the pier
years ago.
Yeah. And if memory serves me right, it was a big headache. Well, because they want to be hands-on.
Yes, and if you read their contract, they've got some very specific things. You can tell the federal government does this. Very specific things in the contract. We can work with that. I mean, just like the materials you use have to have at least a 20-year useful life and all that, which is going to be anyhow. But what we can work with this. The good thing about it is we are allowed, and I have this assurance from the guy that administers the grant. We are allowed to change the scope because I told them we've already done some of these projects because we've been so long awarded. So they're going to let us change the scope and put some other things under this. We just have to, of course, submit it to them and have it approved. But the other good thing is we have until September 24 to spend this money. So it's not a 10-month or 12-month thing. We've got a little time to work with. So that's the synopsis of the boating infrastructure grant. We'll just go on to the next thing.
Sure.
Okay. Harbor finances. Right now, You can see in the memo here, those are our savings for harbor. I don't know why we have the same accounts in two different places, but we do have a harbor long-term replacement account and the long-term union savings account, and we do have a harbor long-term replacement account in LGIP. Someone at some point in time thought that was a good thing to do, so there we go. You can see we have $99,392 in the union savings and $208,000 in the harbor replacement in LGIP. We also have $229,000 in the boat ramp in LGIP, which I've identified to be used for the new boat ramp at Memorial Park. We don't think that'll completely pay for it, but we certainly can use that money toward that ramp. And the other harbor finances there, I gave you a current revenues and current expenses for the harbor as of March 31st. And if you got any questions on that, you'll see that we have not spent the VPA authority grant is $126,000. We have not expended any money on that yet because we haven't paid Ravens for the work they've done and haven't delivered. And then the transfer from the general fund, that's the 25% match to $42,124. Of course, we haven't done any of that work, so those two items don't show up yet.
Have we heard from Ravens?
We have, and that's the next item on here, I believe. The next item on the agenda? No, well, that is an item on the agenda, but we can go ahead and do that now if you want.
Well, we can cover that when we get down there to it.
Okay. Next thing, are there any questions on harbor finances? Okay.
Me.
Moving right on, we have the preliminary drawings back from GMP for the new boat ramp at the harbor. Memorial Park, I'm sorry. The first drawing here, and I have it on the board, is the existing conditions. They did a survey, they did their own survey, so this is not taken from somebody else's work. You can see the numbers in the square boxes are elevations below or above the benchmark, the reference point. If you move down to the second drawing is the new ramp, and also the numbers in the, well, you can see they have proposed elevations, or what the after construction elevations will be there. The big thing here you want to see is that the bottom of the ramp, or the top of the ramp, is at 2.06 feet. If you look up in the top right corner, 2.06 feet is the top of the ramp. If you look at the bottom of the ramp, it's minus 6.1. So that's right about a 4-foot difference in between the top of the ramp and the bottom of the ramp.
And right now, it's 3 foot is what they're, or 2 foot at the end of the ramp was what they were saying, so.
It's, yeah, about 2.5 feet if you read the contours, if you
Yeah.
calculate a little bit. You got about 2.5 feet difference, so.
No wonder you can't
This is
get one
a,
on the trailer.
I think I had Harvey go down there and shoot some grades, and I think we were looking at between 6 and 8% grade. The new grade is 14%. This is, the engineer that's doing this is the same one that did the one up in Ocean Ponds, thank you, that we went to look at. And he said this is pretty much a standard, their standard is a 14% grade, which gives them usually, when you look at the profile drawings here, you'll see at mean low water, you should have 4 feet of water depth at the end of the ramp. The ramp's almost 59 feet long.
But it connects to the old pier that's there.
The old pier on the south side, yes.
Yeah.
Now, we can elect to have that replaced, but we anticipated having that pier in the same position regardless of whether we replace it or we use the existing.
Yeah.
And we can tell them if we want it replaced, we can make that part of the drawings or the construction documents.
It's still good, no need to replace it.
But you've got 15-foot clear ramps, 15 foot of space width-wise. You've got 59 feet of concrete there. We've told him that we wanted the same spec on the concrete texture that they had in the Ocean Ponds ramp, which was, and I've been around concrete a long time, that was an extremely good concrete finish. Very good concrete finish.
Yeah.
The center section is all floating pier. One thing I do intend to ask him to look at is, if you remember at the Ocean Pines ramp, they had legs on the bottom of that float.
Yeah,
So they wouldn't sit on the bottom, so I'm gonna ask him about that because his drawing doesn't indicate it. The things that the engineer wanted us to know, or wanted to ask us specifically, is if this is, the horizontal location of this ramp is correct. And it appears to me that it's what we told him to do. He wanted to know if the length of the concrete ramp was sufficient and the depth was sufficient. I can't, oh, and the other thing he wanted to know is if the floating section were long enough for us. If you see, the floating section goes out probably 8-10 feet past
I would certainly think that's
the
long
end of the
enough.
ramp.
The lights are out.
With the timber pile there on the end to hold it in place. And if you go back up to the, and I'm looking at, if you look at the board here, if you go back up to this section, if you remember, that's a concrete walkway that leads up to the floating docks or the hashed marks.
Right.
Ones with the hash marks through it. The other thing he wanted to know, that's a 6-foot width. The floating docks have a 6-foot width. He wanted to know if that was sufficient. 6 foot width.
What's it gotta be for a handicap? It's less than that, right? What's handicap gotta be?
3 feet. In a building, it's 3 feet.
Yeah, that's it.
So
Yeah, I think you want it wide, because you're gonna have people using it from both
both
sides.
sides, that's right.
So you want at least 3 feet for each ramp. That'll give you 3 feet for each ramp.
If it's 6 feet at the ramp in Ocean Pines, that's more than enough room
For
for two
both
people to
sides.
walk, yeah, for two people to walk down. I mean, that's-
Coolers and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. We don't want people knocking each other in the water. The one question I had for him, well, I had a couple questions for him, but the one question I had for him, if you look, and I'll blow this up on the screen up there. If you look at the bottom of the ramp is at elevation 6.1, minus 6.1, I should say. That's 6 feet below his benchmark. That's 4 feet below the top of the ramp. If you look at the contours out here, the end of the floating dock is only minus 4, which is 2 feet higher than the concrete at the end of the ramp. And I said, you know, Reggie, this appears to be a problem. I said, that's a hole there that'll tend to silt up the bottom of the ramp. He said, I get it. He said, this is our standard specs that we use to build these ramps. He said, but we've found that even if you're in a hole when you start, you won't be by the time they start
Float.
using it.
Yeah.
He didn't say the bad D word, but he said that the silt will tend to be pushed off as people use it. He said the more people use it, the better off it'll be. So,
Right.
but we certainly don't want a ramp down in a hole that's going to fill in. But neither can
We
we.
definitely tend to do that, though.
Neither can we get a permit to dredge anything there. So. Well, we probably could, but I
Well,
think.
we could put a boat on a trailer and just
Well,
tap her in gear on an outgoing tide.
I believe what he was trying to tell me is it'll work itself out if you just use it. So
Yeah.
I take him at his word there.
I'm surprised with as much current that's flowing through there.
I'm
that
surprised
it would
by
silt
that.
in. I mean, that's a lot of current. I don't know if that little jib that comes out of riprap is what's blocking it and causing an eddy right there, but.
Well, and you know what happened to the kayak ramp. We think that's what happened to the kayak ramp. It was broadside to the current, and that eddy caused it to wash out.
Right.
So, I think though that, you know, that, and I have some pictures here. If you haven't seen them, I'll have to. Oh, well, let's look at profiles first, and I'll show you a picture. Here's the profile. You can see he's got mean high water, mean low water. He's put a dashed line in there for the bottom of a boat where it should be as you launch it. And the bottom of the ramp again at minus 6.1. Looking at the second picture, again, he's trying to show you when tide's high where the floats will be. And you'll have to actually walk up to get on the floating dock from the concrete abutment.
That'd be different.
Yeah, and here at the drawing 506, he shows you low water where the floats will be. And again, he doesn't show any legs on those floats, which I think would be a cheap insurance, because you don't want those floats sitting on concrete. They'll tend to puncture the plastic and everything, and waterlog them. So now, looking at the one comment I do have for him, looking at this picture on the board here, 6 of 6, drawing 6 of 6. The bulkhead is new on both sides here, but if you look on the right side, he's got whalers top and mid-range on the outside of the sheathing, and on the south side, on the left, the whalers are on the inside. So we're gonna have to talk about that. I think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
I don't think we're not gonna put whalers. I mean, he can put them inside and outside if he wants, but he definitely needs some outside.
Definitely the outside.
Definitely needs outside.
We're gonna talk to him about that. And if there are any questions or comments or things you'd rather see on this ramp, now's the time, because what I would ask the committee to do is approve this with comments or changes, something we can send back to them and let them get started on permitting and construction drawings.
I would say, go for it.
Agreed.
We're already behind the 8 ball. I know we don't care if it's in the summertime, because it wasn't gonna be used anyhow, but
Right.
even if we give them the go-ahead, well, how long is that gonna take for the permit?
Well, if we get them to go ahead, who knows what the permits will take. We're actually doing some of that ourselves. Harvey's doing the JPA and stuff, so that we don't have to pay him to do it and that kind of thing. But once the permits are in hand, he should have construction drawings done by then, I would think. So once all that's done, 60 days, we can be under construction. And we have to take about 30 days to bid the job.
That puts us in June.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna take a minimum of 30 days to advertise it and have the bid and get somebody on board, and then you've got a little bit of time, notice to proceed, where they can get some material on site and that sort of thing. So I'm thinking 60 days from the time he actually finishes the drawings before we can actually begin construction.
The only question I had was that south side cuts off there. I mean, is there any benefit to maybe having a little bit extra come down on that south side?
We can certainly do that.
I'm just thinking, you got it on the north side. The north side, little hole there is great. You've got
If
dock on both sides. On that south side, if you launch it, it's an outgoing tide. I mean, the boat's just going to go right.
Right
if
for
we
rocks.
did that, if we extended this
You
pier
don't need
here,
much. Yeah, you don't need much, I don't think.
if we're going to bulkhead that, I would ask that we get a permit to fill this part in, so that we don't end up with another one of those eddy situations that's going to wash the sheeting out. So we try to put some riprap in this area here to back up that.
But can we do that?
That's a good question.
That's not even our property?
That line there.
I'm not saying it has to be bulkhead. If you just had dock.
We just had pier there.
I think on the north side, I think that's where it is sticking out as part of our fishing pier.
Yes, that goes out and joins our fishing pier.
Yes.
So that's not actually bulkhead, that's just
all the way
walkway.
out. That's part of our fishing pier.
Right, that's what I mean. Just have
You just have
You just
walkway.
wanna go
Not
all the way up
bulkhead.
here.
a little walkway going out
Yeah.
there. Not bulkhead. I don't think you need bulkhead, 'cause
Okay.
that's going to mess
Just a
up your
walkway.
flow.
Yep,
If you could go out another,
That's no problem doing that.
we can certainly do
6 or
that.
8 feet right there.
And while we're on this, let me go back to one of these details here. If you notice this detail, vinyl sheeting at the end of the ramp, he's driving vinyl sheeting at the end of the ramp so that current doesn't undermine the ramp.
Yeah,
Building a
that's the way it
dam.
should have been.
Building a
Yeah.
dam, just building.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, way it should be.
I mean, taking a look at the details, if we get construction degrade of, if we get what we have drawn here, I think we'll get a very nice facility.
yeah, it looks great.
Yeah. I would say move forward with haste.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, move forward.
Second. Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Thank you. Looks good. Does look good.
I will tell Mr. Mariner we like it and ask him about those things we just discussed. VPA project, as you know, Vernon and I gave the presentation to the VPA back in February. We submitted I think the application was due by March 8th. I think we submitted it on the 5th or 6th, something like that. We should hear in the month of May whether we got that or not, and that new project is to replace the last wooden finger pier at the harbor. Okay, we've got money and got an award to do the first wooden finger pier. Talked to Ravens 2 days ago, and they forwarded me the email from their float manufacturer, and they are now telling us that the floats will be there. What do we say here?
Shipped on the 8th, I think, or something like that.
Shipped to Ravens on the 8th.
They leave the manufacturer to go to Ravens.
By the time Ravens gets them, if they install them right away, which they said they will do, the earliest we're going to get these things is the end of April, last week in April, which means we're going, and if we jump right on it, which we intend to do, we're going to be into the first week in May before we complete this. Vernon and talk to Dean, and they feel like they can demo that old dock and get the deal in place in 1 week.
What do you think, is that gonna cramp your style, Vernon, with boats?
I'll make that done.
Well,
I've already told the people on land there, I've already told them I want to load the board by the middle to the end of April. So they get overboard, we'll just put them somewhere.
In fact, we sent them a letter saying they had been awarded by Mother's Day, I think.
We'll make do. We'll make do.
okay.
Might have to move some
And
people around for that.
it is several boats that tie there that you can put on trailers too. So those are more than happy to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And Dean told me 7 days we can have it.
In place,
Yeah.
then load and in place. Hopefully their timeline is right, because that, if it doesn't come
See, in a perfect world, we'd have it demoed,
previous to
but
that.
I don't want to take a board up
Chance.
until I know it's coming up highway.
Well, I wouldn't take the board up till it's on site,
Yeah.
you know, in case they have an accident on 95 or something.
Yeah. Don't want to say that.
Hey, you're right, yeah, you wait till you see them.
So they're supposed to ship, the floats are being shipped on the 8th to Ravens. Ravens will be 2 weeks after that before they have them mounted and on a truck to us, and that's if they are lickety split. So you're talking the third week in April before they ship them. So we're going to be into the first week in May at least before we can have this done if everything works to perfection.
But if we can do it in a week, we're still getting it done before
Yeah.
Labor Day or Memorial Day.
Right.
Memorial Day. And that's,
When is Mother's Day? When is Mother's Day this year?
maybe. No.
I was saying that, that's when we had a big flounder tournament, Mother's Day weekend.
Is that Jimmy's, Cap Steve's?
No.
No, this is the one
Sunday,
from,
Sunday, May 8th.
Frederick Bunch.
Oh, that's it, oh, okay.
May 8th is Sunday.
May.
It is so, and we've sent letters to everybody that's on the dock right now, telling them they gotta be in the water by Mother's Day.
Yeah, we'll be fine. Even if everybody
So-
signed up at the old dock, we'll be fine.
the 27th and 28th is Memorial Day, right?
Yep.
How many slips will be on this new
Sorry.
tractor? How many slips will it be on?
It's going to be the exact same amount as the other one, only have some longer slips. Same as yours, only have some longer ones. So you got 26 plus
There'll
the
be,
end.
there'll be 6 more than the wooden pier.
Yes.
Okay.
The wooden pier has 22,
Mhm.
and this will have 28.
This was, and you, since everything's tied to one side, you're gaining half of that space every
Sure.
time. So
That's great. Everybody loves it.
It is.
Yep.
But when we were putting that first one in, nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted it. Ever. I mean, you can't beat it. You can't
Nope.
beat it. And I don't care how young, old, like, his father, his mom and dad come there all the time.
It's allowed me to keep them cleaning up my boat and everything.
They're down there 3 or 4 times a week.
They couldn't do it.
They couldn't get on and off.
It's been great. Been great for me.
It's everybody, it works for everybody, it's just a good thing. And the maintenance, knock on wood, the upkeep has been very little.
Yeah.
All
And it's
right.
not, it doesn't look like it's a whole lot of growth on it.
I don't know why, but it's not.
I don't know if there's something in the floats, but it
I don't
don't look
know.
like it's a whole lot of aquatic growth on it.
You get more growth on people's lines hanging down.
I bet you when they pull the Freedom up, there's gonna be some growth on her. Good.
I actually had a man there yesterday, was very serious about it. I mean, the guy pays $300 a month to
I
buy
know.
there, but I just assume he goes somewhere before it's his thing.
Sure.
She's been in the water a long time.
So do you need a motion to approve of the VPA, or that's already taken care
That's
of?
already been
That's
done.
taken care of
Yeah.
now. New one, the next thing I got for you is the 2024 project, and it's just a concept. If you look at this, and I'll turn it because I know it came out sideways
Yeah,
in
you're fine. I love you more than radio.
So, this is an idea we had to put down at Robert Reed Park. And since, when we get this last, if we get this last pier that we just applied for, that back takes care of floating docks at the harbor. I mean, and that's, you know, the low-hanging fruit because we've done it so many times. The idea struck us that, the slips at Robert Reed are hard to get in and out of. They're not used very much because unless it's a slack tide, it's just difficult, you know.
Yeah. Damn near
I saw Lance
impossible.
Stitcher do it, and he was very good at it that day, but I think he's got a lot of practice. In any event, we had the idea to remove those slips and put something similar to this. This is all floating docks right there. If you see along the bottom here, this is the boardwalk at Robert Reed Park along the bottom. And the idea is to go out perpendicular to that with a pier and then run a 100-foot long pier parallel to that so that the slips are running north and south and the pier is running north and south, and you can always dock against the tide, make things easier. You could put 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, about a dozen 20-foot or smaller boats at this thing. If you're renting them to, the double slips here are 25-foot wide, and obviously it's not the scale, it's just a hand sketch. But you could also put about 6 larger vessels here, 30 to 40 feet. The stanchions that we just talked about for water and electric, we could mount to this just like we do down at the harbor, and put electric and water in them, and make it a very nice facility for Robert Reed Park for transients. But when there are no transients there, just having people come over in their boat and stop and walk into town, they got an easy place to tie up.
Local people.
Yeah.
Local
If you
people.
want to come from Greenback over here and have dinner, you know, it's a perfect place to pull up and dock your boat. So we
Yep.
just wanted the committee to look at that and tell us, are you on the right track or not, or figure something else, or tell us what you want for the
No, it's needed.
FY24.
Those slips down there, they're
Terrible.
damn near impossible to get into
Terrible.
without tearing your stuff up. So, yeah, I think you're in the right.
Is that the actual right distance, 100 foot? Is that?
That came right off the top of my head. I just was making 100 foot. We can,
Oh, you haven't measured it, see what you
No.
can, maximum you can get.
no,
This is
but
your
we've got,
concept.
I can do that right now. We've actually got,
We have 200 feet there where the slips are at, and then we have an additional 200 between that and Tom Park.
if you look at the board here, that's, I can measure that.
See how close I am.
From the floating dock on down, you've got 160 feet of slips, wooden slips there. So, yes, that thing, we could demo these, even leave 1 or 2 of them, and put that floating dock right here where this goes. We think that it would be, since it's coming out into the channel 65 feet or so, we don't think it'd be that big a deal. You've got this abutment from the old bridge is still there that's blocking that part of the channel anyhow, so I don't see getting a permit as being that tough. But Vernon also wants to leave this flat dock here for larger boats that may come up in here. I mean, the super yachts, and what you call them.
We've been getting a call more and more for them every year. I got a 58 footer supposed to be in here late in May. The only, what we got to do, we got to pull them dolphin piles. And, which Mike mentioned a while ago, you know, we'll replace the 5 letter pedestals down. I want to put 2 up there for them. Because we've had 100-foot yachts in there.
Would it behoove us, I mean, this is great, and then also along that flat area, because, you know, commonly in the marinas, they'll even if it's against a flat area, they'll go down, they'll have a floating dock right against the flat area.
Yes, they will.
With,
Yes, they will.
because these big boats, they like the floating docks too, because they throw their stuff right over and they hit the floating dock.
We could make that part of the
Part of
FY
this
_24
thing.
project, because this thing here will cost nowhere near as much as what we're doing now.
That's what I'm saying, make another floating dock part on the straight shot for the big jobs.
Yep.
Yeah, you'd have a ramp that goes down, kind of like along
And
the,
then the little boats could come.
and the little boats could use that when they're not big
Something
boats.
similar to what they have even in Hancock's Harbor. They got a wide floating dock alongside their bulkhead.
Yeah, 'cause that would even be great for the small boats when there's not
Yep.
big boats there.
Yeah, I see us as local people using it more than what it is now. And now you don't fly up there. I don't fly up there.
No, I thought Thomas.
No.
Yeah, that's where I go.
So, I mean, it's, I can see, because you have a lot of events out of town and stuff, I can see local people using it more than it's being used now.
The one question I have, and I haven't even get an answer yet, is we've been putting these floating docks in a protected harbor with no tide, no currents. Have to see how that's going to react in an area where you've got tide running fast every day.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll just have to see. I've been looking for some of these that have been installed. I'm sure they have somewhere in that situation, but I haven't found anything yet.
Because they're putting them all over the country.
Oh, yeah.
When I was out in Seattle, they were everywhere. That's all they had was floating docks. And when the tide rise, falls out there, it's got to be a strong current.
Oh, yeah. But I think it would be just a matter of anchoring it properly, the right size diameter pole.
If we got one pole
Just swing on the.
on that outside now on each end, Mike and I even talked about having 2 poles on each end.
Yeah.
And did you go to Cape Charles with us? They had them big steel piles
Yeah.
with the rubber coating.
At the harbor or at Kings Creek?
Both. And the harbor probably takes more view. I don't know about a tide flow, but
It's
you get a
deep
western
there.
wind and it's rough, it's deep and
Yeah,
it's
deep.
rough in there.
It's like 17, 18 feet of water.
It gets very rough in there.
Yeah.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Does Vernon have a report or just?
I got a little league meeting.
There you go.
No, everything's good. You know, the new fuel system, we're working out a couple little bugs in it, but the one we got is not permanent because they're still going with the chip thing. And it's something with that computer and the chip and the card reader and the computer in our fuel tanks. They're not completely compatible because we got a leak protector in our.
Leak detector.
Yeah, and they're not talking to each other right, because when you turn it on, if you don't go right to it, it
Kicks it off.
cuts you off.
So the thing's under warranty for a year.
Yeah.
And Harvey's on them to get back here and
Yeah.
get it straightened
They're
out.
supposed to be here next week. Harvey talked to them Tuesday.
I just wanted to bring up in comments, I think the harbor needs to expense 3 plaques. The 2 boys died this winter and the airman that died.
Okay, well, we're also working on the 48 spectators
That should be.
died. It should be
Yeah.
there anyway.
They should be.
Yes.
And we can do it 3 or 4 a year. That's going to be minimal.
How would you do? Take it out of the harbor fund, put them all back.
Yeah, well,
You know, we do it 3 or 4 years, Harvey, man, you's gonna be 100 years old. They all belong up there.
Yes, they do.
Let's put them up there and be done with it.
I'm with you.
I might also, while we're talking about this real quickly, someone brought up to me that we could put some decorative, put a light or soft barrier around the mast and the two dedicated stones. You see them at cemeteries and museums. It's white post, vinyl post, with a little chain goes around it, just to keep people from walking across it back and forth. Harvey's looking into it, getting this price, but it should cost a few dollars.
And also, I don't know if y'all can look into it or not, or whether it's just gonna be one of those things that appears overnight. I wanna put a memorial up where Plain is. You know, it's not a navigable channel, so I'm thinking, I've got 5 or 6 of those damn submerged aquatic vegetation buoys that washed up. Or, Coast Guard's not here, I've got a Coast Guard buoy that washed up. I've got 2 of them. Those work buoys that they lost. I wanna paint that up and put that up where Plain is. You know, I don't know if that's a harbor thing or not.
We're on there, never mind.
We just have to learn how to anchor the damn thing so it doesn't wash away.
Put a lot of concrete on.
Yeah.
Well, we know that one parking bumper doesn't work.
No.
No.
You need several.
No.
And hope that no liquid will be in the channel.
You gotta have 2 for that.
Well, hopefully up there it's not as bad. All right, that's the end of my comments. Does anybody else have any comments for good of the order?
No.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Adios.